Hurricane Week is going to progress slightly differently than what you're used to. Throughout the week, we're going to be going chronologically from the first storm to the last, and then on Saturday, you'll get the chance, along with everyone else, to vote for which one of the 100 is your favourite. Now on to Hurricane Joan-Miriam. It has two names because it's another basin crosser. It began in the North Atlantic, became Tropical Storm Joan on October the 11th, and then approached those islands and then clipping the northern tips of Venezuela and Colombia as a tropical storm. Well, here comes a surprise coming up, because Force 13's reanalysis on the satellite imagery saw that Hurricane Joan actually peaked as a Category 5 storm before its landfall in Nicaragua, which is obviously much worse than Otto was this year, and certainly the strongest Category 5, the most southerly latitude Category 5 landfall in the Atlantic. It then moved on into the Eastern Pacific, retaining tropical storm status, and then gradually continued towards the west. Didn't really gain much of its strength back, and then it ended its life pretty much as a formality the last few days, where it was a tropical depression or indeed a remnant low, which it did first become a remnant low on October the 28th and stayed at as that in state for a day or two, maybe a little bit longer, and then became a tropical depression again for a little while longer, as Miriam, of course, it was under the name back then. Joan-Miriam, the full name, all very confusing stuff. Well, as we say, Force 13's analysis puts Joan as a Category 5 storm. Whether you agree or not on that, that's maybe for the debate afterwards. Pressure of 930 millibars, fatalities 334, a bad storm, with $2 billion of monetary damages as well, and nearly 100,000 buildings damaged or destroyed as a result. If you're not convinced, take a look at that image. Does that suggest that it might be a Cat 5? Ah yes, Hurricane Hugo of 1989. Well, this was definitely a Category 5, because it's official, and it peaked before reaching the Lesser Antilles and then moved off towards the United States, and of course did that big Category 4 landfall there in South Carolina. A massive storm it was, and certainly gave the hurricane hunters a run for their money as well. More on that in a moment. 107 fatalities and $10 billion of monetary damages as well, and well over 100,000 buildings damaged or destroyed as it wrecked its perilous track over the Lesser Antilles and then finally its United States landfall. Of course, one of the more notable aspects of this storm is that it caused problems to one of the Hurricane Hunter flights, where one of the engines stopped working and they were having a lot of trouble inside the Hurricane with one engine out. Certainly it must have been a concerning experience, to say the least, and there's a picture of that particular engine there as well. And that's what it looked like inside the eye of Hugo. Regardless of what the circumstances were, it was a beautiful eye. There it was, I think that was just after its peak, and there it is just before the landfall in the United States, shortly before. That was when it was a Category 4. There's the radar graphic showing how close the storm was to land, and then that's just before landfall, just about the eye clipping it, and recon was still going through the storm at the time there as well. And here's some damage shots, especially bad along the coast with the surge. I think it's this last picture, the surge really pushing those houses up all against each other. Crazy storm. So, have you ever heard of Typhoon Mike? Well, you might want to, because it was probably one of the most intense storms on record. Certainly from its satellite presentation, it was hugely impressive. When you take a look at the satellite imagery, we found that its intensity was approximately 205 or more miles per hour and a pressure of 874 millibars. It caused big problems in the Philippines and beyond, 748 fatalities in all, and over $388 million in damages, which will probably make us talk about this storm a bit more later. But not before this monster, the Bangladesh cyclone of 1991, which was a particularly horrible storm that affected Bangladesh, hence the name, and moved right into that vulnerable area that we all know about at near peak intensity. It peaked as a Category 5 storm. It was one of the most intense storms recorded in the basin, with a pressure of 918 millibars. It killed over 138,000 people and caused $1.7 billion of damages at the time and destroyed well over 1 million buildings. We don't know the true number, but look at that and the flooding that it caused inevitably. The first storm of the 1992 hurricane season. At first, people probably thought it was going to be not much of an event in August of that quiet year, but Andrew turned out to be one of the worst storms to impact Florida, certainly the worst storm to impact the Homestead area where the epicenter of its landfall was. Peaking as a Category 5 just east of the Bahamas, it certainly went through those islands in a bad way as well. Category 5 landfall indeed on one of them, and then its Category 5 landfall in Florida, and finally its Category 4 landfall in Louisiana. Lots of imagery of this one, of course, and lots of memories of Andrew, I'm sure, from Floridians, and well, it peaked with winds of 175 miles an hour, pressure 922, 65 fatalities in all, could have been much, much worse, and over $26 billion in damages, which would have made it probably the most damaging storm at the time, damaging well over 180,000 buildings in all, mainly in southern Florida. But it wasn't just that area that saw the worst of the storm. There it is at landfall. There's a radar shot of what the storm looked like at that landfall. Remarkable event. And then maintaining its structure quite well after its landfall. That's after it appeared on the other side of Florida. Still looked pretty good. And there it is moving towards the west. And there's another one just as the storm was exiting Florida, the ice still very much intact, which was quite amazing. That's on the other side before its first landfall there. And it was a pretty small storm, and I guess, could you call it annular? Certainly didn't have those spiral bands that it had earlier on in its life. That's at its first peak there, that image, and this is later on at its final peak before its landfall in Louisiana. And then there's another image there, the infrared of what it was doing beforehand. And here's a video of what the aftermath of Andrew looked like in Homestead. Ranked number 4 of 100 last year, well, you can decide how it ranks this year, the public vote. It wasn't the only major hurricane landfall on US soil that year either. We had Hurricane Iniki, which people probably tend to forget. It made a Category 4 landfall in Hawaii, on the island of Kauai, one of the westernmost islands, the westernmost main island arguably. It made its landfall on and then steamed off towards the north after it did make that landfall, peaking as a 150 miles an hour Category 4 at least. Our analysis says 152, there's little numbers here and there. The pressure 931 millibars, 6 fatalities in all, and $1.8 billion in damages. I wish it was million. And destroying well over 13,000 buildings, which is a big deal on an island as small as that one. This is what it looked like. There's the roadside, all those trees that were damaged beyond recognition, I guess. The whole parking lot there flooded, and this is what the surge looked like, how far inland it went. Some people scratching their heads as to why Leicester is on the top 100. The public voted for it, maybe you have an idea. But this is what Leicester did, a Category 1 hurricane landfall on the Baja California Peninsula, a second landfall as a tropical storm into Mexico, and then went into the United States, into those southernmost states, and caused a few issues there in Arizona and New Mexico. 3 fatalities in all, $3 million of damages, and over 1,000 buildings damaged by the storm. Not many images of it, I'm afraid, just this satellite picture. Typhoon Gay of 1992, a late season whopper, I guess. A tropical depression it began as, and then continued to intensify. I'll let Isaac talk about this one though.
Super Typhoon Gay, also known as Typhoon Tsunane in the Philippines, was a very intense typhoon and the longest lasting typhoon of the 1992 Pacific typhoon season. The typhoon first affected the Marshall Islands, causing around 5,000 people to become homeless, and where heavy crop damage is reported.
And that was long before its peak. There it is at its peak, Category 5. And quite a Category 5 it was as well, and maintained that intensity for some time, but then headed towards Guam and gradually weakened slightly, and then continuously as a Category 2 finally at landfall in Guam, and then entered the Philippine region. Obviously that's how it got its Philippine name. Stayed as a typhoon and then went towards its secondary peak, which it did so as another Category 4. A Category 4 peak there, and then weakened rather quickly in the end at the end of November. Well, that was its track. What did it look like? There it is in the background on the satellite imagery. But what was its intensity? Well, from Force 13's satellite analysis, we put it at 205 miles an hour with a pressure of 875 millibars. If you don't believe me, look at the images that are about to appear in a moment. Only 1 fatality in total, and at least 1,000 buildings damaged or destroyed. Monetary damages, unknown. There's the visible image of the storm at peak, but take a look at these infrared shots of what the storm looked like around its peak. One picture in particular, not that one, but the next one, is the one that is most impressive. Take it at face value, I guess, but that's why we said it was 205. Amazing storm nonetheless.
Hurricane Gordon of November 1994 was a long-lived and erratic tropical cyclone of the relatively quiet 1994 Atlantic hurricane season. Gordon originated in the western Caribbean near the coast of Nicaragua as it moved towards the north and eventually east, making landfall on Jamaica, the eastern tip of Cuba, passing Haiti towards the east, and then back towards the west through the Florida Straits into western Florida, moving towards the northeast, peaking as a hurricane, making a loop to the south of Cape Hatteras, and then moving back towards Florida, making a landfall there as a tropical depression. So a pretty erratic track in general, as you can probably see in this animation of the storm's track. But even though that this system was a relatively weak hurricane, that did not mean that it did not cause any damage. This system caused nearly 1,200 deaths in Haiti, and about $600 million in damage in total. However, despite the death toll, the name was not retired, which is something that still kind of does baffle my mind to this day. But then again, Haiti didn't send in the delegate for the name to be replaced. However, also, the system is known for its impacts in Florida, as it caused about $400 million in damage there, and about 8 deaths in total, and stayed offshore North Carolina, but still as a hurricane. And it was a very interesting storm, to say the least, and still baffles my mind how it was not retired.
Now the storm that wanted to set the longevity record, and it did. Hurricane John of 1994, beginning in August and ending in September. And it was the longest lived storm anywhere in the world, and not only that, it was a category 5 at its peak. But it was humble beginnings, and it took quite a while for John to initially gain its intensity. There it is, forming in the eastern Pacific, then continuing towards the central, and that's when it really started strengthening. There it is, doing what storms don't usually do, in intensifying so much in that area. But there it is, category 5, well south of Hawaii, and then continued towards the west-northwest, staying strong, fluctuating in intensity a little bit, and weakening eventually, but intensifying a second time as it approached the international dateline and crossed over, I believe, as a major, and then headed towards the north over Johnston Atoll, and then eventually towards the northeast, but not before it stalled for a few days. It stalled for a few days as a tropical storm, even went down to a tropical depression briefly, and survived as a tropical storm for a few more days in early September 1994. Hanging around the international dateline for a while, going back into the West Pac, back into the East Pac, and then eventually towards Alaska. If that wasn't a crazy storm, I don't know what is. It even confused the NASA, NHC rather, the National Hurricane Center's computers. I'll get there in the end. By our estimations, 165 miles an hour at peak, pressure of 917 millibars, and there it is. No fatalities, but $15 million in damages in total. I believe it caused very minor effects in Hawaii and also affected Johnston Atoll. I don't believe anywhere else was caught in John's crosshairs. Regardless, a beautiful storm at peak. There it is. There's one of the images of the storm near its peak. There's another one looking a little bit worse for wear. And finally, one that you may not have seen, a picture from inside John's eye. Wow.
Hurricane Opal, which is certainly a weird storm, one of the strongest Category 4s ever recorded, with a peak wind speed of 150 miles per hour and a minimum central pressure of 916 millibars, which is lowest for all Category 4s within the Atlantic. Opal developed as a tropical depression just off the coast of the Yucatan and then moved inland and moved very, very slowly across it. Ended up developing into Tropical Storm Opal, actually over the Yucatan, as it continued to move slowly to the north and then curve slowly off to the west. As it moved off to the west, it would continue to slowly move and then intensify into Hurricane Opal before being shot off to the north, north, and east, where it then began rapid intensification. It looked like a doomsday scenario at first, as it was a Category 4 very, very close to the Gulf coastline, but just as quick as Opal blew up, it also began to disintegrate and was only a Category 3 minimal at landfall with winds of 115 miles per hour. The storm would then continue to rapidly weaken over land despite having a lot of size to it. Opal's damages exceeded $5.1 billion in the United States alone, and that's in 1995, and is directly responsible for about 63 fatalities.
Cesar formed in July 1996, first starting near the island of Grenada as a tropical depression, and it's another low latitude one, grazing the northern coasts of Venezuela and Colombia as a tropical storm, and then eventually reaching its peak in the Atlantic as a Category 1 hurricane, and then striking Nicaragua as a Category 1 before moving into the Eastern Pacific, where the name Douglas was slapped onto the end of it. It was the last storm to have a double-barreled name, and Douglas would go on to peak as a Category 4 in the Eastern Pacific as we went into the new month of August. So Category 4 there, passing just near that island, I forget its name unfortunately, and then continued towards the northwest, weakening gradually before eventually dissipating, as most storms do in the Eastern Pacific, in the middle of nowhere. So Cesar was the worst out of the double-barreled part of the storm in terms of its human cost. Not its strength, but the human cost, where I believe there were 142 fatalities in all. I think most of them were caused by Cesar. Peak wind speed in the East Pac was 130 miles an hour, pressure of 946 millibars, and $203 million in damages, with well over 2,000 buildings destroyed. Plenty of pictures of the storm as it moved through. And there is a picture of the storm near its second peak, or its main peak you could call it, and there's an infrared image showing quite clearly it's a Category 4. Another beautiful storm in the Eastern Pacific, Hurricane Linda, which was the most intense storm in the Eastern Pacific until recently. Became a Category 1 initially in the middle of nowhere effectively, moved pretty slowly, Category 5, and then really gave Socorro Island a very rough night indeed in September 1997. Remained a Category 5 a little bit longer before weakening on, I believe, the 13th or the 14th, and then the weakening became rather substantial rather quickly, but Linda persisted for a little while longer before eventually dying off around September 17th. So, my favourite part of Hurricane Linda is what it looked like near its peak. Of course, its intensity as a Category 5, no fatalities thankfully, its wind speed was a massive 187 miles an hour according to our satellite analysis, and a pressure of 897. Still got nothing on Patricia though. $3.2 million in damages, at least one building damaged, and unknown whether any were destroyed. Probably not, but there's some wonderful pictures of the storm near its peak on visible imagery with a fantastic eye. And yeah, Linda was a sight to behold. There it is approaching Socorro Island. I wouldn't have wanted to have been there. In a year of craziness in the Western Pacific, it would be just as fitting to end it on that note, and Paka didn't fail. It began in the Central Pacific as a tropical storm in early December, moved into the West Pac, and wouldn't intensify for a little while yet. There it is, just emerging on the screen, passing over the Marshall Islands, and then after passing that area, it began intensifying, and it did quite quickly in the end. Category 3, 4, and eventually Category 5 after weakening a little bit first, and then there it is going for its Category 5 run, which it did very close, or worryingly, with Guam in the path, and it passed very close to Guam as a Category 4 storm, if not moved over, and then became a Category 5 again after passing the region into the Philippine Sea, and then really weakened very quickly in the end towards Christmas time, just a few days off. Well, its intensity in the end, according to Force 13's satellite analysis, how far will it go? 186 miles an hour and an estimated pressure 900 millibars, no fatalities, $580 million of damages, and over 11,000 buildings damaged or destroyed, mainly on Guam, of which there's one or two photos. But first of all, there it is weakening very quickly. There's some images of the storm near peak. That's a nice one. Looks like a Category 5 there. There it is, very close to Guam, passing just to the north as it was. Indeed, very close to the island of Rota, actually. It was probably closer to the storm's eye than Guam was. Saipan, not so much. There's the storm as it was approaching the area, Yep, certainly must have been worrying times for Guam, though it did mercifully weaken a little bit before its closest approach. There's a radar shot of the storm's eye. Looks like it was undergoing a replacement cycle at the time. And here's some damage photos of what was going on there. Lots of buildings de-roofed and debris all over the place. And the car didn't survive that well either, I'm afraid. Hurricane Pauline peaked initially as a Category 4 and then peaked again as a Category 4 and then grazed the coast of Mexico and did all sorts of weird things like a massive blow-up of convection over land. But it was really impressive on its first peak. It only held it very briefly, but it had a pinhole eye for a little while with a wind speed of 150 miles an hour according to our satellite analysis and a pressure of 937. 373 fatalities or more and nearly $500 million in damages. A bad storm for that area of Mexico. Big issues they had. Hurricane Georges formed in September 1998. Far to the east of the Atlantic. Began life, of course, as a weak tropical disturbance and then gradually intensified. What's interesting about Georges is that it very nearly became a Category 5 storm at its first peak. Didn't quite get there. 155 miles an hour only at its first peak, which was on approach to the Lesser Antilles. There it is as a Category 4 and maintained much of its intensity as it passed through Category 3 over the Leeward Islands, Category 2 landfall in Puerto Rico, and held on to some intensity, even strengthened to a Category 3 before making landfall in the Dominican Republic, over Haiti, then on to Cuba, staying as a hurricane. I think it briefly weakened to a tropical storm, if I'm not mistaken. We're about to find out on the animation. Guess not, stayed as a hurricane, then strengthened again into a Category 2, and then entered the Gulf of Mexico. And it could have done a lot worse in the Gulf of Mexico when you consider what other storms we've had, but did still pass just east of Louisiana and the New Orleans area before making landfall as a Category 2 storm and then milling about the Florida Panhandle for a while before eventually dissipating just before it managed to reach the East Coast at the end of September, first day of October. So Georges, as we say, winds of 155 miles per hour, very close to being a Category 5, pressure 937 millibars, and a huge amount of damage that it did across the Greater Antilles in particular, with nearly or more than 200,000 buildings damaged or destroyed in all, probably a lot more that we don't know about too. There's some pictures of Georges near its peak. Look at that eye, I think it's amazing, but not quite Category 5, mainly due to the cloud tops not being quite cool enough. That's the storm after it weakened, and there was its second, or its landfall on the Dominican Republic rather, as a Category 3. There it is, moving just west of the Keys as a Category 2 storm there, I believe. Still a Category 2 in that image as it approached Louisiana, and then the Mississippi landfall there, just after landfall, that's what it looked like. And there it is again at landfall, and when it still had an eye. That's how it looked like on radar when it made the US landfall. That's what it looked like inside Georges' eye. Looks like it's near its peak in that image as well. And several damage photos here too. Well, we arrive at the Atlantic's second deadliest storm ever and the most deadliest storm in centuries, Hurricane Mitch, and it was a Category 5 at peak as well, of course. It didn't look as strong per se as some storms might, but Mitch certainly looked the part at peak, and it looked fantastic indeed, near its peak intensity. But what it did to Honduras was really terrible indeed, and the other neighbouring countries. Category 5 it stalled at, and then gradually weakened over the course of many days just off the coast of Honduras before finally making landfall as a Category 1 on October 29th, moving inland, still moving painfully slow, then on to Guatemala, where it remained as a tropical storm, and then weakened to a tropical depression, and then turned towards the north, becoming a remnant low for a little while before reattaining tropical depression intensity in the Bay of Campeche, and then moving on towards the Yucatan Peninsula, where it briefly attained tropical storm status and then weakened again. And then it headed towards Florida, tropical storm status yet again, and made landfall there at a tropical storm intensity before turning post-tropical in early November. Quite a ride. It wasn't over though. Mitch, as an extratropical cyclone, moved all the way towards the northeast across the whole North Atlantic to the area northwest of the British Isles, and eventually affected the Faroe Islands in the end. So that's what Mitch looked like on the imagery there, and of course it was a Category 5 at peak. It killed 19,000 people. Just let that one sink in for a moment. $6.2 billion of damages, and well over 150,000 buildings damaged or destroyed. Lots and lots and lots of images of the storm near its 175 mile an hour peak and a pressure of 905 millibars. So many images of what Mitch looked like. There was a lot more in the gallery as well, which we don't have the time to show. That's what it looked like inside the eye from a recon flight. Wonderful. And here's some of the damage photos which we'll leave you with from Hurricane Mitch. Cyclone Thelma was a storm that really promised to be very intense, and I suppose it was in the Australian region. There it is, peaking just to the northwest or to the west of Darwin, and then making landfall eventually in the western part of Australia. Its wind speed 160 miles an hour by our reckoning, 921 millibars, 920 even, with one fatality in all, and monetary damages unknown, thought to be very little, with only a few buildings damaged and none known to have been destroyed by this very intense storm. Typhoon Seb caused serious issues for the Philippines and Taiwan when it peaked as a 180 mile an hour storm and made landfall in the Philippines near its peak intensity. Not many pictures on this, so it's a short one, but 122 fatalities and over $500 million in damages from this one. September 1999, and that was the arrival of Hurricane Floyd, which began life in the central part of the Atlantic, as many storms do around that time of year, creeping up on the Lesser Antilles, but not really affecting them too harshly, moving just to the north of the Leeward Islands, with some leeway there actually in the end, becoming a Category 2, and then it decided it wanted to veer off to the west a little bit more, and then it attained Category 4 intensity, and it was around that intensity that it had for quite some time, peaking probably near its closest approach to the Bahamas when it reached Category 4 intensity again, moving very close to one of the islands and then moving off towards the northwest, very nearly becoming a Category 5 as well, before finally making a landfall as a tropical storm in North Carolina and then riding up the east coast of the United States before turning post-tropical and making it as far as Canada and Newfoundland eventually, before dissipating just east of there. Here's a nice animation showing what the storm got up to. It certainly looked the part there, quite a large eye initially, and then moving towards the west-northwest, nearing the Bahamas here, certainly looked the part as a Category 4. Didn't quite get to Category 5 status even though it looked pretty good, and then continued off towards the northwest and sort of lost its composure as it neared the North Carolina area. And there it is, continuing up the east coast and causing significant flooding issues for the United States and beyond. There it is near its peak, and at peak its wind speed was determined to be 155 miles an hour with a pressure of 921 millibars. 77 fatalities, could be more. $6.9 billion in damages in all, with well over 60,000 buildings damaged or destroyed. There's some fantastic images from inside Floyd's eye. Here's the radar animation of what Floyd looked like on its approach to landfall, and I think it did keep hold of its eye all the way until its landfall. We'll get the radar to confirm that here. Obviously it really lost its composure before it got there. There it is, just about making landfall with its eye intact in North Carolina and then continuing off towards the northeast. The damage was pretty bad across the Bahamas, I guess, and certainly in the United States where there was significant flooding damage, and I think that image there tells it all. You're watching Force 13's live streaming service, a Hurricane Week special. Good evening, welcome. This is Force 13 live, continuation of the discussion of what we've just seen on Hurricane Week Part 3. In a moment, I'll be appearing. Oh, there I am. Hello, my name's Nathan Foy, and I'm joined by the Skype team, who in just a quick moment, here they are in the background somewhere, reaching out to cyberspace. There they are. There they were.
Hello.
Hi,
hello,
that's
people,
the voice. This
welcome.
The voice of Daniel there was the Hurricane Week trailer goes by in the background. Well, that was part 3. I guess we're getting into more storms that we're acquainted to, I suppose, with a lot of us. And I don't know if anyone has anywhere that they'd like to begin. If you've got a comment or question for us, by the way, whilst we're live, go right ahead. And if you've not submitted your vote yet for your favourite storm, you might want to consider it, or you might want to wait till the end of the week. force13.com/HW/2016, as it is on your screen at the top left. We'll get the latest scores up in just a moment. But guys, who'd like to start us off? If anyone.
Okay.
I'm sure Cesar will have a thing or two to say about his storm, that's for sure.
Well, it wasn't my storm because I wasn't born in 1996. But, yes, first of all, I'm not a killer. Doesn't mean because I have the same name, I was that storm. But, well, first of all, I must say that Cesar was a very bad storm for Central America. Despite being just a Category 1 cyclone, it killed hundreds of people, and also surviving the crossover of the Atlantic to the Pacific was kind of impressive. And now it was renamed Douglas, but for me, I'm still being Cesar.
You hate that part.
Yes, because it is the same storm. So I survived, so I intensified to a category 4
Oh,
in
don't you
Eastern
wish it was
Pacific.
2016?
Exactly.
Where the name, where it retains the name.
Exactly, Nathan. You know me well, but
Oh, no.
what we can do now, but of course, Cesar was a very bad storm for Central America and even more for Nicaragua, receiving intense storm surge and flooding, and of course, hundreds of people being killed. That's a very bad situation, and of course, the name deserved the retirement. So we will not see my name anymore in the Atlantic Basin.
All right, let's get the latest standings then in the voting. There it is right now. Well, what do we say about that? Hyann and Patricia both at joint top with 26 votes each, followed by Katrina with 12, Sandy 10, and the Great Hurricane of 1780 in 5th with 7 votes. Go Great Hurricane, that's what I could say.
Yeah, Patricia and Hyann have always been at the top, and it's people just I guess people really like those two storms, which in some cases is annoying and
If you do have, if you do want to tell us about reasoning of why you chose the storm that you may have voted for, you go right ahead in the comment section. You can, and we'd be pleased to hear from you. Let's properly introduce everyone that's in the room right now. We have Jason, Craig, Daniel, Hank, Cesar, David, Strat, and Isaac from all 4 corners of the world, I suppose. Hopefully well represented, at least in certain circles. Oh, there's Daniel. Yes. Indeed. Okay, well, also, it's worth pointing out that in just over 15 minutes is the official end of the hurricane season.
Yep.
That's right, it is the end of, for myself, one of the most historic seasons so far, because we saw Hurricane Alex very
Blimey, what's that noise?
I don't know what's that noise.
Yes, Cesar, it sounds like someone's being electrocuted somewhere else.
Well, as I was saying, because Hurricane Alex formed very, very early in the year, not even 6 months earlier of the official start of the season, was a hurricane as well. And well, then we had 3 more named storms in the first 2 weeks of June. So we had pretty much activity on the start of the season. And then we had Matthew. Sorry for getting into that, but I need to. Matthew was the first Category 5 in 9 years, and then killing thousands of people. Well, 1,169 people to be precise. And the deadliest
And is
storm.
that a precise number now? Is it still being worked out?
Well, I think it is a precise.
Blimey. Whose noise is that?
Who is it?
It's Isaac.
Yeah. If there's any more, I'll have to respectfully remove you till the problem gets sorted out. But in the meantime, Cesar, you were talking about Matthew?
Yes. Well, Matthew killed a lot of people and was one of the most intense hurricanes to ever made landfall in Haiti as well.
Oh yes.
It was very close to break the 11-year period of Florida of not seeing a category 3 or more landfall in that state.
It wasn't just Florida, it was the whole United States.
Well, actually, yes, you're right, in the whole United States.
Well, I don't know whether anyone was looking at wind speed probabilities or anything, but I don't know what the chances were of a Category 3 landfall at its closest point.
I think that analysis was an 80%.
80% chance, wow.
Yes, so...
Goes to show that never always believe an 80% chance when you see one.
And finally, very, very late in the season, almost in the end, we had Also, the first crossover in 20 years, the first hurricane since 1969 to affect Costa Rica, Panama, and the southern part of Nicaragua, if I'm not wrong. Survived the crossover, but of course, as it entered to the Eastern Pacific, it died. It was a suicide from also.
Also,
I think. Sorry.
Also, we had Hurricane Nicole, Category 4 hurricane, major hurricane direct hit on Bermuda, first in Fabian of 2003. Did you mention Hermine? I don't know if you mentioned Hermine or not.
Hermine, I never mentioned it actually, and Nicole, as you were saying right now, that's right.
Yeah.
So,
being the
of
first,
course, yeah, continue.
Hermine being the first Gulf hurricane since Ingrid of 2013, a 1,081-day streak according to my stats, and first Florida hurricane since Wilma 2005, a record streak. And another storm that we do not mention made landfall pretty close where Hermine did, but let's move on now. Yeah, but let's move on now.
Yeah, I could possibly think what you're talking about. It mustn't have been this year. Anyway, John wants us to talk about Charlie. Well, Charlie is in tomorrow's video. He's on part 4. Wow, Isaac dropped the bomb there. Charlie's in tomorrow's part, as well as all the other storms that you'd expect to see from 2004 and 2005 and around those times. So if you're unfamiliar with the list, well, we'll keep you in suspense. But yeah, don't forget to use that link to keep voting on your favourite storm if you haven't done so already, and we'll be keeping those scores live. And there they are. Also, votes in the top 10 there for Winston, 5 votes. Joaquin with 4 votes.
Oh no.
Don't know how. Mitch with 4 votes. Bias nil. Hermine with 3 votes, as well as Sudalaw and Tip. And lots of other storms with 1 and 2, including Andrew with 2 votes. That deserves more. And Alan and Gilbert, all with 2 votes each. And Wilma as well. And Cesar-Douglas has 1 vote, as well as Charlie.
Cesar, please.
As well as Charlie, which was just mentioned, John, and the Labor Day hurricane in the fine company of Marco of 2008.
Thanks, little brother.
Marco was a very tiny storm. Even more smaller than a common supercell storm.
Yeah, probably was. Only was the.
Oh.
If anyone.
Easy. Yes, go ahead.
If anyone wants to share the screen with any storms that have taken their interest in, that maybe has sparked their imagination over the last hour whilst we've been showing part 3, you can go right ahead. There's some interesting questions going on, such as, what do I prefer, the USA or the UK? Which is a very strange question, but I don't mind answering any question. It's a difficult one, actually. Some parts of the UK I prefer, but certainly not the weather. I'd take, the subtropical US weather over the UK weather. Wouldn't mind.
Yeah, not necessarily. You probably wouldn't want my weather because, we get 100-degree heat in summer and.
Well, who doesn't in the United States? Can happen anywhere almost.
God, Texas summers suck.
Sorry?
Texas summers are awful.
I won't go to Texas in summer then. I'll visit in spring.
Probably best.
But yeah, the UK I prefer. I guess it's just because of home comforts and all that. Anyway, who'd like to go next?
Well, I'd like to go back.
We haven't.
Problem.
Wow, thank you, Isaac.
John says.
Yeah, it turned out it was my radio. Apparently, it started glitching out and sort of blurring out random music. It is.
Yeah, it sounds like you're systematically
Sounds
being crushed.
sounds like it's now prepared. Repaired, sorry, not prepared. Repaired.
John says, "What's the worst hurricane to hit Guam?" Hank
Chance I've not
replied there
62.
saying Karen. Yeah, I guess it probably was. Destroyed 95% or more of all buildings on Guam. Category 5 landfall. Magpie Gamer says, "Do you think hurricanes in the future will get worse due to warming waters?"
Possibly.
Well,
Actually, probably.
it's not going to be next year. The waters probably aren't going to warm very much next year. Looking at what we're looking at, I don't know. I think it depends on more things than just the water temperature, because the West Pacific, the whole first half of this year was devoid of any activity despite very warm waters. Obviously the water temperature built up throughout the year because there was no activity, and I'm sure that's happened many times before elsewhere. So it doesn't necessarily guarantee, but obviously it will probably create the environment that would be needed for it. Anyway, where should we go next? Who wanted to... I mean, well, here's the big argument that some of the team members have sort of been having. You know, one of our members, Devon, I'm sure he won't mind us saying, thinks that Mike is the most intense storm in the world. What do you guys think?
I kind of disagree, but Mike is in my top 5. In fact, my top 3. I think Gay of 1992 is probably the most intense ever seen. I had Gay at 203 miles an hour and 867 millibars.
Oh my.
Hey, Devon had Mike at 863.
Yeah, I think that's nuts.
Yeah, I don't think that's correct. I have Mike at 871. Same with not high end. Tip.
Force 13's analysis, as you saw during this part, put them both down in the mid 870s. Certainly very interesting.
Yeah.
The problem is with storms that strong is that there are so few of them to compare, aren't there?
Yeah.
By wind speeds, I say Patricia's the strongest in the worldwide, but by pressure, I think it was Gay, actually.
Yep.
And then Tip.
I find it interesting how you managed to reach that conclusion.
I don't know, but I just... Well, I know, but...
Electric Blue says, what would happen if $1 trillion hurricane hit the United States? Well, a lot of people would be poor, more poorer than they are now. I guess the US debt would increase.
Electric Blue, that's a very hard question to answer.
It's actually about $1 trillion, isn't it?
It's about 20 trillion, isn't it, nearly?
Oh.
Crazy numbers. Anyway, there we are. Yeah, $1 trillion hurricanes. We're not going to get anywhere near that anytime soon, I don't think.
No. Well, maybe in 10,000 million years.
Not 10,000 million years. If you think about inflation, the first $1 billion hurricane was Betsy. First $100 billion hurricane was Katrina. So it is very feasible to think that it could happen in the next 20 years.
Well, hope we cannot say that.
Based on how it took 40 years to get from a $1 billion storm to a $100 billion storm.
Well, the thing is, if there were to be a storm that would cause close to that devastation, you'd have to hit Tampa. Because if you guys don't know, Tampa is extremely vulnerable, but they've been extremely lucky that they haven't been hit by anything. If a major hurricane comes up in there, then there could be some massive catastrophe. Some estimates even put the damage total as high as $500 billion that were to happen. I think that's a little dubious, but regardless, it's still something that worries me to this day. That something could happen like that in the United States. It would dwarf Katrina, possibly. I mean, it might sound a little much, but you get my point.
Yeah, and what about thoughts about Hurricane Andrew, another storm that appeared on this particular episode today?
Andrew will always be remembered by history of meteorology.
Yeah.
Ever.
Like the Miami hurricane of 1926 was pretty similar to Andrew in that if that were to happen today, it would
Probably
be
worse.
it would be if the Miami hurricane 1926 happened today, it would be the costliest natural disaster in the United States, beating out even Katrina. I think $160 billion was spent for adjusted for wealth normalization and all that. So.
Well, it's 3 minutes until the hurricane season ends in the Atlantic. Would you believe?
Oh,
It goes
nice.
by UTC or Eastern?
Time flies.
It should
going
go
by-
by UTC. If they don't, they're morons. And hello,
Well-
Strat, by the way.
Yeah. I think at least in terms of Andrew, memorable storm, probably not the best ever though.
Or worse,
Well-
depending on your perspective.
Well, best in terms like if you know you're looking at a storm in itself.
Appearance.
The appearance doesn't really matter.
Well, like strength, damage, everything. It was memorable, but it wasn't like the worst in either of those categories.
The appearance doesn't really matter when it comes to damage. You could have a pretty, not so great looking storm, but could cause immense amount of damage because of its slow movement or
It certainly
extreme-
is
or whatever.
possible to have to just see a storm and just say, try and detach from the effects that it causes and say, wow, that is a beautiful looking storm.
Like me, you just take an example. Cesar was a very ugly looking hurricane and killed a lot of people in Nicaragua.
Yeah, there's nothing
Yes.
good to say about Hurricane Cesar.
nothing.
Eh?
World Mapper 2 asked what was the worst storm to hit California. No storm
You've got a
except for the
choice between
1930
two.
Yeah, the 1939 tropical storm and the 1858 hurricane. Probably the 1858 hurricane didn't make a landfall, but still caused pretty significant damage in San Diego, of what I'm aware of. Now, there have been other storms in the past that have threatened California, specifically Linda of 1997, which is actually on this week's hurricane list, actually did threaten California. The forecast cone actually had
Had it in a
landfall.
5-day track.
5-day track actually had it make a landfall near Los Angeles at one point as a weakening hurricane. That didn't materialize, thankfully. And it stayed out to sea and just caused some, rough surf on the California coast.
That actually kind of brings up a good question of it, like in not like near future, like within the next few years, but as we go on through the century, if the warming sea waters will make a hurricane be able to make landfall in California.
I mean, it's definitely plausible for one to happen, but it's just extremely rare. I mean, it's possible within the next 100 years, especially near the San Diego area.
Oh, I
or
think there's a lot of things that are possible that we don't know about. I mean, until you have 100 years of satellites, for instance, you don't know what could be going on out there.
Yeah,
You could put up the question of which will happen first, a hurricane landfall in California or San Andreas earthquake.
I want to talk about something in just a minute, but first of all, it's 30 seconds till the end of the Atlantic hurricane season, so we may as well do like a New Year's countdown, like we always seems to be the tradition, doesn't it?
Yeah,
But-
you're gonna put some music on.
No, we're doing nothing special. We're just going to do random, we're just going to say, oh, that's the end of the hurricane season. That'll happen in 15 seconds. But it's been a very interesting hurricane season indeed. What was your best storm, guys? 5
Well,
seconds.
the storm that we don't want to mention.
Oh, well, there it is, the end of the hurricane season, and we have now entered December on the universal clock, and here in the UK, and by...
Oh, it's the first day of Christmas, isn't it?
Oh, dear. And by extension, everywhere in the Eastern Hemisphere, pretty much, is now in December and out of the Atlantic hurricane season officially. There we are. Well, it's
So,
not unheard of to
happy-
have a December storm, but here we've gone out the season limits.
But we saw
Happy
January
ending.
season.
Maybe we should do an advent calendar for next year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cesar.
not one yet.
Well, nothing to say, just like happy Atlantic hurricane season ending.
Party.
Well,
Very catchy, isn't it?
really, yes, we should have a party. Okay, no, that's not good. But well, now what do you think will happen next in the 2017 season?
Well, there's
Ah.
people. We've had that question pretty much every evening, haven't we?
Oh, really?
What
Duh.
people think about 2017? Well, you go ahead and talk about it if you've got an opinion, Cesar.
Well, I have an opinion, but of course it's too early to
Yeah.
about that. But at least I think the season it will be kind of a little bit more active than
Oh,
the year.
Hmm.
It depends of how La Nina is, how strong is La Nina, or gets how strong gets.
Fuma actually thinks it'll be as active as 2005. That is ridiculous.
Okay, that's not nice.
Now, if there's any
Yeah.
Hurricane Ike supporters out there, Jason tells me that the first vote has just been registered for poor Ike. It's got one
Really?
vote now.
I'll just throw out a prophecy for 2017 right now. Don't quote it unless it happens. But
Okay, well-
I'm writing it
let's
down
go with-
now.
all right.
Got you on
God.
record. This is
18
live. People
storms.
remember this, you know.
18 storms, 16 of which will be named, to depressions.
Let's not go to exact numbers, but okay.
10 hurricanes and 5 majors. That's my prophecy.
It's up to him
Well-
if he wants to go to exact numbers or not. I wouldn't be so brave yet.
My predictions for the season actually all came true. I said 15 to 16 named storms. We had 15. 7 to 9 hurricanes. 7 to 8. Yeah, 7 to 9 hurricanes. We had 8. Paul was a hurricane, and I said 3 to 5 majors. We had 4. Otto was a major, and I said 1 Cat 5, and Matthew was a major. So I forgot that. Jasper also says that Noah got it 100% correct. Yeah, because they had a range of 6 storms. Of course, they're going to get correct. So you can't really say that.
Eliminating all the error. Now, I was going to continue the discussion about California. I saw on the Central Pacific Hurricane Center's archive that I think it was them, that they registered a long time ago, I think about a century ago at least. Apparently they recorded a hurricane in Northern California, but it really can't have been, because it was around November, December time. I mean, come on, you're going to get a hurricane in the San Francisco area in December. Now,
That's probably an extratropical system.
there's one thing to say, probably like the Columbus Day storm, one thing to say that anything is almost possible because we've only got limited satellite records, and I do think a lot more than what we've seen is yet to come, because who knows what kind of storms we had before satellites. For instance, there's a possibility, as I suggested during Typhoon Tip yesterday, that a storm in 1940 could have been larger than Tip. Maybe not as strong, but we don't know. And for the history buffs out there, the most intense cyclone ever in the North Indian Ocean, you probably won't know this, was a storm in 1823, where they measured a pressure of 897 millibars in the North Indian Ocean.
Yeah. And actually, going back to the whole Tip thing, who knows? Maybe Tip has just been, maybe we're in a intense hurricane, like a very intense cyclone drought
and
right now.
And don't forget also that Tip's diameter was largest quite a while after it actually peaked.
Yeah.
That's what some people neglect to think about Tip, that they think
So
that it was
that means
peaked
that
at the same time as it reached its maximum wind field.
So that means that Tip underwent a 9 replacement cycle and then got big,
Yeah, absolutely.
really big.
Yeah, it was huge. I think it was 2 days, or nearly 2 days after its peak, that it reached its maximum radius. I think when it was a Category 4 again. So yeah, that's just one thing to mention. We've got such a short span of satellite records and observational records. We just don't know what's out there. But the point I'm trying to make when saying all this is, we are, especially in this culture today, very knee-jerk about anything that goes beyond our perceived normals, when in actuality we don't know just how normal or abnormal it might be. We could have been, in the last 40 years, in a record quiet phase for all we know. We'll never, no idea of knowing.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, and certainly look forward to the unpredictability of the future, and we'll always be there to provide the storm updates.
Briefly touching back on the California thing, you were like, said December hurricane Northern California. The only possible argument, the only thing that could give argument for that is saying how Hurricane Alex in like early into mid-January this year was under cooler waters as well.
But it's even more difficult in the Eastern Pacific than it is in the Atlantic to have a tropical cyclone at the time of year. You know, because, I mean, quite often we get Central Pacific storms around New Year, last year, 2010, in December. I'm sure there's a few other examples. And the Atlantic's had December storms. When was the last time the East Pacific had a December storm? I can't recall any off the top of my head.
Actually, last year.
Oh.
That one depression in the Central Pacific. And
yeah, but I'm on about the Eastern Pacific, east of 140 West.
Well, technically the Eastern. Never mind.
But the Eastern East Pacific, last time December storm there, I can't recall. But there we are. Some people, or one person, wants to play Guess the Storm. Well, it's up to you guys if you want to show some Guess the Storm images on the Skype team there. And
I don't
mind.
Really.
It is too early right now.
Oh my gosh.
It's because I want to be prepared, because I want to win again.
You want to?
So.
Bring it on, games.
Well, we are here. We are here until past, just as we were yesterday. So if you've got any more questions for us, we're here till then. And I don't know, Hank, whether you might want to mention the National Hurricane Center and how they came out with some new reports yesterday.
Yeah, the National Hurricane Center yesterday came out with the report on Fiona. They skipped both Colin and Earl. Colin quite suspiciously. Hopefully they downgraded it, but one can only hope. And they also came out with their TCRs, tropical cyclone reports, on Darby. Darby's peak was up to 120 miles an hour from 115. They did Hurricane
I saw
Georgia.
from another source that it had gone down from 125 to 120.
Darby was 115 operational peak.
I got it down as 117 on the Force 13 analysis, but hey.
I think I have a similar number. Georgette, they didn't touch. Ivette, I think they made it a little bit weaker. His peak was shorter.
Yep.
And K, I don't remember exactly what they did with K. Let me just check real quick.
Very little, I think.
Yeah, like a 1 millibar difference.
Oh, that's right. They upped it by 1 millibar.
So yeah, that's about it. We should be seeing we should be seeing them come out more more quickly as we get into these winter months.
Yeah, of course. They seem to be doing it more quickly every time.
Yep.
Because they used to only do it in April, and now they're doing it before the season's even finished. I just want to talk a little bit about 2017 again, and whether the Texans in the room, Hank, Isaac, whether you think there will be a Texas-specific threat next year, storm-wise.
Possibly. If it really depends. I gotta go downstairs real quick, but I'll just say this real quick. It really just depends on how active the Caribbean is, how active the Gulf is.
Yeah.
We could see a storm coming from the Caribbean to Texas, or one that forms in the Gulf and comes into Texas. I'll be back real quick.
Yeah, the dog really wants to speak as well. And Strat, over in the northeast, what do you think about your chances of a hurricane next year?
Actual hurricane, probably. Well, anything. It's actually a bit surprisingly more common than you first think. But the only thing I'm thinking that would be really conducive for that is the continuously higher than normal sea surface temperatures near the East Coast. So,
okay,
that's the only sure bet.
Well, do you think we're going to have La Nina conditions next year?
that's probably too early to tell for sure.
And I think it's going to be pretty interesting if it's another neutral, because I can see your argument of a... were you suggesting like a more active version of this year?
Kind of,
Because
but
if
also...
it's neutral next year, that's probably what it would suggest.
I wasn't really like thinking specifically about like, long, maybe a very slight tilt.
Oh,
All right, I'm back
a
now. It was just some college kid wanting an application.
Oh, not the dog fan.
Well, no. But going back to my point, it also depends. I think I heard Strat talking about it really quickly. About La Nina next year and how
Yeah, he just
correlates
mentioned
to
that.
activity in the Atlantic. So,
yeah. Now, two people want you to play Guess the Hurricane.
okay, fine.
I have one that I'll show. It's kind of a trick that I'm hoping won't be as noticeable.
Yeah. By the way, we've been keeping records on what's
to...
going on with the El Nino La Nina situation, and there's been a little bit of disagreement about that in certain circles. We still have the worldwide, or I still, for the Force 13, have worldwide. Oh my goodness. The index as positive, above 0, but only just. Well, maybe a little bit more than only just, by quite some distance, but quite far away from the El Nino threshold. And it is on a gradual downward trend, so certainly I'm vigilant for the possibility of a La Nina emerging in the next few months.
Alright, I have my one little storm that I will show if screen share magically works.
Little in a literal sense?
Not literally.
Skype kicked me off the call, I apologize.
Oh. Not that little.
Oh, is this... Oh,
yep.
This is a hurricane... No.
Wow.
I know that's... Hurricane Cleo?
No, this is a bit of a trick one. Just tell me when you start wanting hints.
Is it like an image of a storm that was placed where it falsely is?
No. I'm just saying like it's something you wouldn't expect it to be.
Okay, so it's not photoshopped or anything.
Well, I wonder if it's Ike, first of all.
No.
And secondly,
just ask me when you first want a hint.
I wonder if it's Sandy.
God damn it.
Good. I got one. About time too. Because Sandy did look pretty good at peak.
Yeah. I was hoping that I could crop it a little better so you guys wouldn't be able to expect it, but...
Yeah.
I had a bit of a stump there.
Yeah.
Well, no one was even guessing Sandy, so I feel quite good about that one. Honestly, anyone who hasn't looked at Sandy, after landfall, it looked the best it ever did. If you look at just about an hour after its landfall in Cuba, do take a look. It looked really good.
Yeah. I am currently unavailable to get a storm. Anyone? Strat, do you have another one by any chance?
I'll try to get up another trick one quickly.
We'll just look at Daniel's face. Yeah, straight to attention there.
I think I might go soon.
Oh dear. Well, we're all going soon. We're only here for another 15 minutes. It's not too long. Don't forget you can vote your favourite storm on the Hurricane Week website. Let's see if the results have changed at all right now. There they are, the top 11. And you can see on the screen. Looks like there's no change, no discernible change to the top 11 there. As they were. If you've not yet had the opportunity to change the result, then you can do just that by putting in your vote on the website. The experts panel will be putting their votes forward on Saturday, and I'm sure that'll be pretty interesting to add on those final votes and see which storm is the eventual winner, according to what everyone thinks. Certainly is rather interesting indeed. I've no idea what could end up being the number one, but who knows? It might be a bit misleading, the current top 2, for all we know. What the experts have up their sleeves. Anyway.
I got one more ready to go, and let's see if anyone can guess the storm.
Oh, is that Faye? No.
No.
George's? No.
No.
I'd be annoyed if it's Charlie.
No.
Good.
Is that? No, that's not. That's not it. That's not Ike. That's.
It's not.
Be even more annoyed if it's Katrina.
Actually, that kind of looks like Katrina.
How? How did you do it?
Actually, that kind of does look like Katrina.
How did you do it?
But actually, I reckon with the delay, mashed potatoes probably got that first. So that's a point to the viewers. So one each.
I'm just going with trick one, so maybe I gotta mix it up a little bit better.
Maybe you do.
I go for the next one. Let's get off the screen share so I can pull up
People
another
have seen
one.
those images too many times.
I was looking for one that wasn't like, particularly near its peak or whatever.
Oh, but you can't underestimate these viewers.
I wish I could.
Ah, well, you can.
Beard Man said Hermine.
Which
Oh.
Hermine?
That's any meaning this year.
It's just about as likely to be this year as it was any other year's Hermine.
Well, 2010 was much farther.
Yeah,
2010 was much
I
farther
know.
east. 2004 was much farther north. Never mind.
I know, indeed. I don't know if you want to do a quick chat about Nada.
There's really nothing to say.
Because it's tropical cyclone, nothing means nada in Spanish.
Yeah,
That's true.
that was an unfortunate name.
That's right. Well, I hope there nada does nothing.
But
Does
you-
nothing in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, let's hope it lives up to its name, or lives down to its name. But I bet there is someone in the world that has the name Nada as well.
That's okay.
Very
Someone
unfortunate
else is
person.
asking for another storm. I got another one. Let's see if you guys can guess it.
Okay.
Guess the storm.
Okay.
Igor.
No.
What?
It does look familiar. I might want you to zoom in if
That
possible.
looks exactly like Igor.
I know the
I'm gonna say.
It is
resolution will
not.
be very poor, but it might help.
Let's see how far I can zoom.
I-
Is that too much zoom?
I don't mean crop, I mean zoom.
Oh, I can. Oh, what do you know? I can actually do that.
Oh,
What?
well.
That looks exactly like Igor. I
Isaac
swear.
sounds like he's in it.
It's not.
Looks exactly like it.
Unless
So-
I've been misled by the image, it is not
Maybe.
Igor.
Guesses are coming in then. You better know what it is. Guesses are coming in for Floyd, Gaston of this year, and Joaquin.
How? It's Gaston.
Is it?
What?
Yes.
That can't be.
That's
Oh.
not. No, that's not. That's not.
That does
Uh-oh.
not look like Gaston.
That's not Gaston, dude. Yeah,
No,
I think
it did
there's-
look much better than Gaston.
There's something.
Oh shoot! The site says page not found. I guess I was
Oh,
wrong.
dear.
Yeah, so it's
Igor.
Igor.
We're gonna write that one off.
Had to be Igor.
Ah,
Cannot
Oh,
guess.
the
Gosh,
guesses
that
are
was-
still coming in, by the way. A guess for Hurricane Thomas, believe it or not.
Oh my.
Mine, but it's staying down on me. If so, I could put another one up there, possibly.
All right, let's see. I'm gonna try to think of
Oh my
another
gosh.
one.
Someone please mute their mic, guys.
Indeed.
Let's see if I can get another good one going.
Well, that'll happen somewhere. Let's see if the voting has changed at all. Any more questions for us before we go off the air in 10 minutes? We're here to answer. Of course, part 4 of Hurricane Week follows tomorrow night. We're here at the same time, same place, 11 p.m. UTC, and we'll be here till at least 12:30. Obviously, we'll be covering storms going from 1999 to 2008, I think. Yep, 2008. So we're covering that period tomorrow, and then of course 2008 to 2016 on Friday, day 5, and then it's up to you to figure out which storm takes the number 1 and also 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way to 100.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Another storm.
Oh my gosh.
Here we
Why is your thing so bad? Oh, I've seen this image.
This is not the peak. Not the peak of the storm.
Yeah, no. That's Hurricane Irene.
Unfortunately, it is.
Wow.
You guys are too good at this.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. At some point in the last 10 years, that image, certainly.
I just figured out that I had my mic turned off, and I said Irene.
No one got Irene, by the way, by the looks of things. A lot of people saying Gonzalo. And Stephen said Tropical Storm Julia. Wonderful.
I guess it's Irene, but I had my mic turned off.
Oh dear.
No.
Another question then. I'll just point this out to whoever. What is your favourite hurricane name? So many. Hundreds, literally. You would,
Oh my
wouldn't believe
gosh.
it. You wouldn't
Not
believe
as
it,
kind of
though.
misleading, so I kind of like that.
Gaston.
Okay.
Yes, Gaston's probably mine as well.
Yeah, there seems to
Yeah,
be a
probably.
Gaston culture in this, in elements of the team.
Very Gaston.
Alright, let's see if I can pull off a...
So that would be 2-1 to the team right now. If there's any more images coming up, we've only got a few minutes left here.
Yeah, I'm trying to find another good one quickly before my time's up. Let's see if I can go right
Okay,
around
well,
here.
let me just point out that the Great Hurricane had another vote just now. It's gone up to 8. It might catch Sandy at this rate. Only you can influence what the voting will read. And Hyan and Patricia have stayed the same ever since we went on air, both at 26. Daniel, would you like to divulge maybe any idea of what storm you'd like to see at number 1?
Pam, maybe.
Pam?
Yeah.
What would you like about Pam? You think because of the immense damage that it did to the island nation of Vanuatu?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure Craig would have a lot to say about that, but I think it's too late for him to speak to us directly. But I'm sure we'll hear from Craig on Saturday's show, hopefully, because I believe we'll be starting earlier on Saturday night.
Yeah, and I'm going to get one last one going. I think I got one good one left before time runs out. Unless the fans even it out, this is going to be the last one. Because in that case, we need a tiebreaker.
Oh dear.
No, it will be the last one because we ran out of time and because your storms are so easy.
We will run out of time. Come on then, here we go. Martinez said, by the way, give us a hard one. So much.
Okay, it is loading. Wow, I will guess a storm while it's loading.
Okay.
Oh.
Is that Alex?
Yeah.
That looks a storm that is
Stop. Is that Tropical Storm Nadine, by any chance?
Yes. It is.
No, it's not, actually.
It's
It's Hurricane Nadine.
Oh
It's the
my
same
God.
thing!
I said because you showed the name of the storm.
Yeah, you kind of did show the name of this.
Yeah, that one was an accident. I did that on accident. I tried to click off. It's just like...
Looks like that one doesn't count then, because I don't think the viewers had the opportunity to see it.
Well, because Isaac's mistake, that means it is a point for the viewers automatically.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's kind of true.
Cheating happened, so the viewers get a point. 2-2.
Exactly.
That's tough.
First point of the viewers, yay! We have competition.
No, it's 2
Alright,
each
let's
now.
see.
So
Sorry?
You know it's 2
Yeah.
each, don't you?
Exactly.
Katrina has another vote on the voting. That's up to 13 now. Might it catch the top 2? Who knows?
Wow.
And,
We should wait for
uh-oh.
what happens next.
One of the storms, I believe, has gone up to 5, and I can't remember which. It's either Mitch or Winston that's gone up to 5 by the looks of it.
It's Winston.
Hmm.
All right, let's see.
Winston and Mitch are tied with 5
Actually-
votes.
Guys, Craig said in the chat that he has one.
Oh, okay. Go right
Oh.
ahead. Hiccups aside.
Don't.
If Craig is able to do it right now.
Let's see.
But he asked
I'm
me to
just
screen-
waiting. But
Maybe. Does my screen share work first off?
no.
Let's see. I guess it does.
Oh, here
Well,
it
at
is.
least
Oh, well, it
show
was
the-
there.
in
Oh,
500 years' time.
It was there. It was loading for a brief second, then it went off.
No, I turned
Alright.
it off.
I got another one,
Okay.
and I hope it isn't so easy to guess this one.
Stephen
this time
reminds
around.
us, by the way, that it's 182 days until the hurricane season 2017.
Yeah.
Just in case anyone wants to completely bypass Christmas.
Just counting down the days.
All right, here we go. What is this storm?
no, the phrase is,
Fine.
what the hell is this?
I would, but I got language alerted earlier.
there is
Or
no-
saying it.
Gordon.
No,
there's nothing showing up on my screen share, so I wouldn't be
It
able to.
is
Isn't?
Erin.
what?
Erin.
Aaron?
Yes.
No.
Hmm.
Ah.
You made me nervous there for a minute. It's like, oh, come on, I haven't even seen the storm. You already guessed it.
I don't know what
Errol?
Oh, is that Felix?
No.
Gabrielle.
No.
Oh my God, Dean?
No.
I've seen this before. Oh.
Me too. I can't believe that I don't remember it.
Karen.
It is Bertha.
It's Karen.
Yes.
You stole the wiki.
Shoot.
It was funny because Cesar was saying Aaron.
Yeah,
That's why I kept asking Aaron. Aaron. Thought he's
But it is
trying.
not. But it is not Erin. It wasn't
Frank
Erin.
shared with me.
Ah,
Frank just share with me his image real quick.
Okay.
This one might be kind of easy.
kinda.
Ooh.
EPAC storm.
Silence.
EPAC
I
storm.
can't see anything.
What?
Patricia.
No. No.
That's a new low.
You went too far in that, Isaac. Strike for Isaac.
Guesses are coming right through. Francis, Isabel, Joaquin.
This is Hurricane Daniel.
Yes, it is.
Oh, good.
Hurricane Hudson.
Well, it appears that the team have clearly won then in that case. Sorry, viewers.
Wait, there's
tried
one,
my
I got
best.
one last one, and it's gonna be a bit more difficult this
We're
one.
trying to rub salt in the wounds here. It's already 4-2. The viewers know they can't win. Save it for tomorrow, Strat.
Okay, I will keep this tab
We should
open.
let the viewers win tomorrow. I think that it doesn't feel so good losing every time.
No.
I really want to share this one.
Well, they were close. They were close. Just wait till tomorrow on that one, hey.
I guess I will.
I found I think someone just beat Strats low. They said Matthew.
I know. More than, in fact, 2 people said Matthew. It's not as bad as Joaquin, though. You gotta say
Let's see.
Joaquin.
People are saying.
At least no one said Colin. Anyway, on that
Someone
note,
said
it's-
no. Someone said Katrina.
Yeah, well, no, it's not as bad, I guess. Anyway, on that note, it's time to end the show. We'll be back again tomorrow, 11 PM UTC. Don't miss it. Part 4 of Hurricane Week, covering storms from 1999 to 2008. And you might want to watch the other videos of Hurricane Week They're online right now, the ones we've already done. This one will be available to the public in an hour or two, as soon as it finishes the processing process. And my voice went. And you can also vote your favourite storm, force13.com/Hurricane Week HW/2016. That's all from us, that's all from the team. Thanks guys again for another evening. And we'll see you again tomorrow.
Good evening, guys, and see you tomorrow.
Alright.
Yeah.